There is rather a broad spectrum of how buyers approach purchasing a property here in the DMV and in Montgomery County. They range from those folks who fall in love at any old thing to those who pick apart to the finest detail and don't ever get anywhere. No matter your style or your personality type, you want to make sure that when you've bought your house, you've saved yourself from years of unpleasantness afterwards because you made some big mistake. And this is an area where homes are expensive and the mistakes can be costly. So you want to make sure that you're not making one of those mistakes that years later you continue to regret. The first thing I recommend is that you actually have a plan, not just dreams and hopes, but an actual plan. Know what you want, know what you need, know where you want it, things like that. Actually have a plan, something in place that you have perhaps even written down and laid out so that you can refer to it. That plan can include what school districts you want to be in, where you want it to be, what style of house, what level of finish, things of that nature. But you want to lay them out so you have some frame of reference to work with and toward. Now, having that plan doesn't mean it's etched in stone. You want to be able to compromise because you may look at what you want, what you need, and then find out later that just isn't really things going to fit your lifestyle. So you have to be willing to compromise, but don't compromise just to get it done. Compromise to your benefit. Compromise in ways that it improves what you end up with rather than having to settle for something less than you really would like. You want to know what you want to buy, where you want to buy it, all of those things. And you also want to know if you're buying with someone else, say a partner, you also want to know that partner's plan. I had a client some years ago. We worked together for quite some time, and the wife really, really, really wanted to buy a house. And we saw lots of places. We saw condos, we saw homes, we saw lots of different properties. And she really, really, really wanted to buy a house. And she was ready to go at any minute. The husband, on the other hand, unbeknownst to all of us, had no intention of ever buying a house. And ultimately, what ended up happening is they parted their ways, and she did get her house, but she didn't have that relationship anymore. So be aware of not only your needs, desires, wants, that sort of thing, but make sure they align with your partner's because if there's too much of a tug of war going on, it is minimally not going to be pleasant and maximally just may not work out. Now, once you've got your plan, then you're going to move forward with various aspects of searching for the house and putting together a transaction. You're going to have a team of people, believe it or not, working with you toward that. You're going to have your agent, you're going to have a lender, you're going to have a title company, you're going to have an inspector, and perhaps a few other people along the way. You want to make sure you have a team you can work with. There is nothing more frustrating than working with an agent or a lender that never answers the phone or waits 2 days to answer an email or gives you information that isn't quite complete enough for you to fully make a decision. So you want to make sure you have a team behind you and working with you that meshes with your desires, meshes with your operating basis. Make sure you understand fees. Make sure you understand their operating aspects and how they perform on a daily basis. How often should you hear from any of them? So you want to make sure your agent, your lender, your title company, all of those people that you're going to be working with, your home inspector, make sure they're all people you can work with. It's hard to know that in all cases up front, but don't hesitate to raise your hand and say, hey, this ain't right if you feel like something isn't right. Perhaps it is, but maybe you just need to have it explained. And a good quality team behind you will make sure that everything is understood by you and you feel like you can do what you need to do to make your decisions and end up in the driver's seat. Now, a key aspect to this process is the financial one. And I'm not just talking about the mortgage payment and the interest rate. There are lots of financial aspects that factor in to the purchase of a home. Of course, one is the interest rate. What is that rate and how's that going to affect your payment? What do you have to put up front? What sort of cash do you need to start the transaction? What sort of cash do you need to close it? So you need to know those things. But all of those things are just part of the story. You also want to think in terms of long term. So the costs that you have now, your interest rate, if you stay with that loan, that interest rate's not going to change unless you had a variable rate mortgage, but that interest rate's going to stay the same. But over time, your taxes are going to go up, your insurance is going to go up. There are lots of other things to factor in, like maintenance and things like that. So you want to know not only is it fit your budget now, but what about 5 years from now? Having said that, you also don't want to put yourself in a position that you have been too conservative with your purchase that down the road you have to buy an upgrade sooner than you thought you might. Every transaction is going to cost you money. So the whole idea of buying something now and in 4 or 5 years trading up, it doesn't actually work out. There are costs involved. There could be unforeseen expenses as far as repairs and maintenance on a house that you may be trying to sell. So it's not exactly cheap to sell and buy again. So it's usually a good idea to look at the long term. So if you plan to stay in a property 5, 7, 10 years, look at projections of what your life's going to be like in 5, 7, or 10 years. Will the size of your family increase or decrease? Do you expect that your salary and your earnings are going to go up or potentially down? At any rate, you want to make a purchase that you can stay in comfortably long enough that you're not forced to sell. Because if you have to sell within 2, 3, 4 years after making that purchase, it's not going to be easy. It's rare that one has enough appreciation to cover not only the cost of the original purchase, but any costs that go along with it, because closing costs on selling are often much higher than they were when you bought. Also, when you're considering the monthly costs for the house itself, realize that shortly after you make that purchase, it's very possible and very likely in some cases that your tax assessed value is going to go up, which means your taxes are going to go up. So you can count on, in most cases, over time, your mortgage rate is going to stay the same if you had a fixed rate mortgage, but your insurance, your condo or HOA fees, your taxes, your assessed value for those taxes all can go up over time, and you got to be prepared for that. It may not be tons, but it's enough that over the period of time, if your income doesn't change, you could find yourself in a pinch later. So be prepared for that. So we've talked about having a plan. We've talked about some of the financial aspects of all of this and what to expect short term and long term. Now you're ready to move forward. Now you've got your house under contract. Now what do? We'll get it inspected. The days of buying a house without an inspection were foolish in my estimation. There were ways to do it to sort of be safe, but I believe there are a lot of buyers out there that wish they'd had the opportunity or made the opportunity to inspect the property before they made the purchase. So I always advocate getting an inspection. Even if you can't do a full 4 hour view of this house, at least get enough of an inspection so you can see the high points and, more importantly, see the low points of this house. Make sure you know what you're buying. This is a very, very, very important point in my estimation. When you're doing your inspection, ask questions. If you've never bought a house before, all of this is new. So don't be afraid to ask questions. If you have a good inspector, and as I mentioned, you want to have a good team around you, if your inspector is worth his salt, he's going to answer those questions for you. He's going to be honest with you about what's really important, what's key, and what's not so much to worry about. So make sure that you have an inspector that is going to be thorough, is going to look at the house from top to bottom and give you a very honest assessment of the quality that you're buying. Hopefully, you've structured your inspection so that you have not only the right to negotiate for anything that you've found, but you also have the right to void the contract if you just can't come to terms. Most contracts around here have the ability to set that inspection so that you can negotiate for either repairs or credits or a combination thereof, but also has the ability generally to void the contract. So make sure you've structured it in such a way that you have those rights and can exercise them if that's what you need to do. So be thorough with that inspection. Ask a lot of questions. Know what you're buying. This is very, very important. This fell out during the pandemic because of the frenzy of buying a home and the worry about missing out on the next one. So make sure you look with your eyes and find out what's going on with that house, the good and the bad. Now, any house is going to have defects, even a new house. And some people have bought houses with the idea, we'll fix this, we'll fix that, we'll upgrade this, we'll upgrade that. And then some years later, when they've sold the house, they never got around to any of those things. So be really honest with yourself about what you can and will take on as projects, because you will hate yourself at the settlement table when you're selling the place, when you have to fix things that you should have fixed all along and didn't for the new buyer. Now, when it comes to the condition, there are things that are acceptable to a degree that can be fixed, can be remediated, or that you can fix over time once you have the house. But there are some things that could be non-starters. You may not want to install a new roof at the cost of $15,000 or $20,000. So pay attention to that. If the foundation has some valid and real defects, be 10, 20, 30, 50, $100,000 or more, depending on the issue. So make sure that you're not taking on more than you really can take on. Some of these items are non-starters, and you got to be aware of that. Don't worry about hurting the seller's feelings by voiding, because these are things that should have been taken care of in the first place. Another thing about the condition of the property is its layout. If you find it confusing, you will find it confusing forever. That won't go away. The placement of the appliances in the kitchen are very key. You can't be efficient in a kitchen if you have to walk across the room every time you're cooking a meal just to get to the refrigerator. So pay attention to the layout. If you have to walk through one room to get to another to go to bed, that's not a great scenario. So be mindful of the layout of this house as it fits your lifestyle. You're going to live in this house for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years perhaps. So you don't want to be having to deal with stuff that you just don't like and have to deal with over time, because you will be frustrated and you will hate having to do it. If you're buying as part of a homeowner association or a condo, make very, very, very sure you read the resale documents that go along with the purchase. All three jurisdictions have provisions for them in the statutes regarding real estate buying and selling. So make sure you read them. They're there for a reason. Those statutes are there to protect you, and so you need to take advantage of them. I had a buyer some years ago bought a condo, and very clearly stated in the condo resale package was that there was going to be a special assessment in the tune of about $10,000. The buyer just got the documents, set them aside, never really looked at them, and then was really upset when that $10,000 was levied against him. And you're obligated, those condo docs, you're obligated. You can be foreclosed upon if you do not pay your fees. You're obligated because at the time of the purchase, you're going to sign documents saying that you will honor the covenants and the rules, the regulations, the bylaws, all of those things. And if you don't take them seriously, they could come back to haunt you. In most jurisdictions around here, there are provisions for being able to void the contract if you find things in the condo documents or the HOA documents that you just can't abide by. And the reality of it is you don't even have to give a reason. So there is protection built in to the sale by the law of the jurisdiction in which you're buying. So take advantage of that. If it is just not something you can live with, get out of it, because you're going to have to abide by it, even if you disagree with it as the years go by. So you want to have a plan. You want to know where you're going. You want to know your starting point, and you want to know your end point. So have a plan in place. Not having a plan in place could lead you on a wild goose chase that you'll never, ever actually end. Pick your team carefully. Make sure you've got people you can work with that will abide by your wishes, yet will keep you on the straight and narrow and keep you out of trouble should trouble come up. Know your finances and plan for now as well as in the future. You want to buy a house that you can enjoy financially now, but also that you can enjoy financially down the road and reap benefits of the appreciation. Buying in a neighborhood that doesn't look like it's going to be very well looked at in the future. So buy with the financial ideas of property and your expenses now and in the future. Buy more house than you think you need, because your life is likely going to change, and it's cheaper to buy a little more house now than it would be to buy a second house during that same period of time. Read the HOA, read the condo documents. Make sure you understand what it is you're signing. For that matter, read what you're signing from start to finish. These are all very important factors. Now, the last thing, and I think while this may not be the most important aspect and the most important thing to do when you're buying a house, I encourage all of my buyers to buy something they absolutely love. If you stick to all of the logistical side of the equation here only, and you forget about buying a house, which is going to impact your life and your lifestyle for many years to come, you're missing the boat. Houses have to do with status. Houses have to do with lifestyles. Houses have to do with livingness. So you want to pay attention to that as well. Buy something you love. Don't just buy something that you think might make you money down the road, because in this kind of market, the way things are the last couple of years, I can't guarantee that that's going to happen for any of you. But if you buy a house you can stay in long enough because you love it, you probably come out fine after it's all said and done. So enjoy the process, enjoy your house, and buy a great house.